Marcus, hey man, how you doing? Adam here. I just watched both of your videos, Just the Two of Us, and Isn't She Lovely 2 of 3. And I'm a little bit confused. I double checked. I don't have 3 videos from you. I only have these 2. I have Just the Two of Us. I have Isn't She Lovely 2 of 3. Okay, so I don't have video number 3, but what I'd like to do in this video, because for each piece there's only a little fingering that I can maybe show you, but since you're doing them so close together and you've brought up certain questions in what you've written, I would like to address the concept rather than the details. So the concept kind of applies to where you are at in this stage of playing. And we're all on the journey. Believe me, we're all on the journey. It never ends. I'm always trying to improve, and that often means changing certain things in my playing. So you had asked me, now let's look at what you said here on Just the Two of Us. Won't ever takes months to learn them, even only partially, and it won't ever sound like you, but I do what I can do. Now, let me tell you, this is really hard to get, especially when you're trying to make it sound like someone else. I try a lot of the time. I was just, before you went on, I was just practicing a little thumb picking, like sort of Tommy Emmanuel, Chet Atkins stuff. There's no way. There's just, I've thought about this. We're talking about a whole lifetime of background and experience, and so you'll never actually come to the same solution that I would. Don't worry, there's hope though. So it's a losing game to try to sound like somebody, and not only that, my playing has changed so much, I don't even sound like I sounded on the original Just the Two of Us, to me. I liked some stuff that I did on the YouTube video better than what I do now, but I've kind of evolved based on some other things, which I'm going to explain to you. Because I am going to give you a direction that I think will it'll bring good things out in your playing. Isn't She Lovely? This was really good. But then you asked me, hitting the strings too hard, playing lighter. Okay. This is one of the trickiest things. You'd be surprised that it's sort of like walking, jogging, and running. The sort of more fluid that you go, and if you speed things up a little bit, you have to go lighter. That sort of explains some of it. You sort of have to go lighter, like guys who can pick really fast. For example, I mean, I can flat pick pretty fast, but I can't do it if I'm playing that hard. And that's just an example of me just playing something fast. It's not groovy at all. Okay, but what I can tell you is there's a certain, and I'm working on this with the thumb pick, there's a certain, you hear it scratching. No matter what I do, I'm not getting stuck. But then you don't have a real deep, punchy tone. So where do we find the middle? Okay, so now this is sort of, I'm explaining this to students as I go. This is my approach right now. Number one, as I always say, do that drum rhythm. Do that drum rhythm, digest that drum rhythm, let that be your guide. Practice that drum, because that's going to change what you choose to do with your fingers. Okay, that's going to change things. Now, when I started playing jazz guitar, I had this experience I was started off by playing funk. It's not going to sound very jazzy on this. Got to lick my finger so the pick doesn't slip. I sort of went from playing funk one, two, three, four, playing in bands to doing stuff on one note, right? So let's just think about that for a minute. I started with like a rhythm thing, just the chicka ticka 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 ticka, right? And then instead of going across 6 strings, I tried to keep that same looseness and bring it to 1 string. And then slowly those things grew into solos, a la George Benson. I realized I could make riffs and keep that looseness. So I'm actually trying now to do that kind of thing with my fingerstyle technique. And let me show you what I'm talking about. You don't have to do it like me, and it's going to look different because it looks kind of funny with my wrist out, but I get a slightly better sound like this with the thumb. I can push the string in a little bit. So if I go like I can strum. So now, the whole idea of am I playing soft, am I playing loud, how hard do I have to play, we're kind of in a different zone now because there's going to be soft, there is a sort of natural softness, but it's because we're getting into a horizontal flow. The music is starting to flow, and so the volume of the actual note is based on that. When I first started fingerstyle, I was trying to do it kind of like classical guitar, plucking the notes and matching them with the groove in my head. You know, and occasionally, you know, the slap and a few things emerged that made it sound groovy, but now I'm really trying to have everything go with the groove. Now, I want you to just listen to the sound. This is a very famous drummer, Joe Morello. He's the guy who played on Take 5. I want you to just listen, and this is sort of how I envision the skin of my fingers on the strings. Listen to the drums, the snare drum. So rather than like a real on the note, I'm kind of imagining that a little bit like a smoother sound, like if it was a brush, okay? And so how can I explain this? One of the pieces I've been warming up with lately is "Isn't She Lovely?" And as primitive as this may look, you probably can't hear the bass. I'm going, and I'm just going to use my index finger. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that was with my thumb, obviously. Now don't look at my hand like this because I have to really be careful to not play too hard so that this thing can keep flowing because I don't want to lock up like that. But this seems to be the only way that I can get both the thumb and the finger to do that rhythm thing. So I'm trying to bend everything that I do to let's just look at the 6/8. Okay, and I can explain some details. I like this, even though it's quiet, I feel that this bass sound is funkier, and I can also get real quiet with those clicks. They're not as loud as the thumb pick. So, using those tools, one, fingerings have to change, but it's not like classical guitar where we're going. See, and everything's kind of tight and pushing, you know. You know, because you see this note on music paper and you think you have to play it with full power. So this leads to a whole lot of other left-hand issues like muting. Like I'm having to mute all my other strings so that I can be sloppy over here. I'm not telling you this is how you should do it, but you don't have to be so precise and be hitting every note with such an even attack. So I'd like you to, you know what could be interesting? Here's what could be interesting. Let's take Isn't She Lovely, for example, which you play great, and just the two of us, that's going to come along. That's going to totally come along. It sounded really good. Honestly, what would be really interesting here is if, forget about the tune for a minute, let's just practice rhythm the way you would do the drum, and see if you can get your 12/8 happening in some kind of way. Say like you're just playing rhythm guitar, for example, right? And you do, I'm going up on the one, going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So up is on the first one. So that I get on the 2 and 4, I'm getting the back of my finger. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, right? I'm playing. Okay, we'll play the tune. Isn't she lovely? And so practice this, even if it feels weird. Right? And so you practice that, and I just want you to get into that and see what it feels like, right? Go into that, and you should be flopping your hand around. Don't worry about technique. Just think of your fingers like big sausage guitar picks. Then, once you've settled into that, go back and play the piece. And then you might say to yourself, wow, when I'm in the groove thing, I'm in this place, but then when I go to play the piece, things tighten up, things don't feel right. So how can you get the piece to feel more like that? Okay? And I dealt with this. I dealt with this thing big time when I played jazz guitar, because exactly this problem. I found playing with a band, I'd groove, right? If I was on a solo gig, with the saxophone, you know, we're playing, I'm grooving behind him on rhythm guitar, then it was time for my solo. Because of having certain ideas about playing with the pick and everything, things tightened up, things stopped grooving. And so I'm on a lifelong quest to say, how can I make the solo guitar groove? And you might have to come from a rhythm angle first, and then figure out how you can get the tune in that. I'm going to repeat a point that I made before. That's how I did the funk thing, and then I went to one note, and then it grew into a couple notes, but it was starting with rhythm as the bass. That may answer your questions about hitting the strings hard and feeling stuck in certain places. So you will actually play lighter by doing this. But it's not a question of doing what you're doing and just playing lighter. It's a concept question. I'm going to show you one other technique. I know I'm going on really long, but I want to give you the best information possible. I want to show you one other thing that I often have to do lately. Let's say I'm doing, just the two of us. Sometimes I have to pick a note up, and it's too difficult for me to get really precise. And you're a very precise player. But like, let's say I'm grooving, the hand is flopping around a little bit, and it's not dead on. You can mute on your left hand. So I can go. Even if I go across the high E string, you're not hearing it because it's muted. Okay, now I don't know if I show you this in the instruction, but when I do, I'm muting the high E string with a finger over here. Okay, so challenge every idea. You don't have to have 3 fingers on a string. You don't have to have 2 fingers here. You don't have to use any finger. You try every finger, see what works. I've had to sort of practice my new technical approach on that piece quite a lot. Okay. For example, also with the way that I'm playing now, I can't do this. It just doesn't work. So I'm leaving that out. And here's the point. Here's the point right here. I'm leaving it out because I have to go with the rhythm. I have to go with what feels right rhythmically rather than the notes. Okay, so you want your right hand overall, and it's lots of different kind of motions. It's not just these motions. You want to find everything that can groove. Backs of fingers, back of your thumb, fingers up, muting. And that's why the rhythmic concept is so important. You want to find everything that can groove and let the arrangement settle in to your comfortable zone about what grooves. So that's why I said, you know, my version of Just the Two of Us, I listened on YouTube. I'm like, it sounds great. I don't know why I changed it, but I couldn't go further with that concept of a sound in the bass, the way it felt under my finger. I couldn't bring my music forward. And so things are resettling. So you've got the notes down. You've got the notes to these pieces down. And now it's a question of how you do it. So do the drum, practice your, and if you want to go, if you want to just jam on the chord progression a little bit, that's good. Go for rhythm only. Then go back to the pieces and say, what's the difference? How do I bring these two things together? Okay, because you will have to eventually construct your own versions and your own concept of the piece. Mine is just a start. It's also just a start for me. So, alrighty, Marcus. So this was kind of a double lesson, and if there was a third video, please let me know because I can't seem to locate it. Okay. God bless. Maybe if I remember, I'm pretty busy, but if I remember, I'll email you. If not, you'll hear it in the reply. Alrighty, man. Take care.